Welcome to Living Out Loud with your host, Jess Phillips, where we talk all things addictions, codependency, relationships, and the good, bad, and ugly in between. Hey, podcast family, it's Jess, and welcome to the Living Out Loud podcast. I have some very exciting news. My new ebook, Breaking Free, Healing from Narcissistic Abuse and Reclaiming Your Power, is officially available for download. I wrote this ebook for anyone who was raised by narcissistic or emotionally immature parents, for anyone who has suffered through the silent treatment, for anyone who was called oversensitive, or for anyone who grew up emotionally starved. I wrote this ebook for the same kids who turn into adults chasing the same type of love they were shown growing up, for individuals who find themselves in psychologically abusive relationships where they are gaslit, punished, and then find themselves begging for connection after their abusive partners pull away. I know firsthand how insane this can make you feel and the impact it can have on your mental health. And I'm here to tell you that you're not crazy and you're definitely not alone. I have poured everything I know about narcissistic abuse into this ebook, and it's packed with exercises and journal prompts to help you go from hopeless, anxious, and depressed to empowered, boundaried, and clear about who comes in or out of your life. This ebook will explain the different types of narcissists, the many ways abuse can appear, and help you set boundaries and get your confidence back. If you're ready to jump in, you can find the ebook download link in the show notes of this episode, or you can head on over to my website, www.jessphillipscoaching.com, and purchase it straight from there. And if you're looking to do more intensive one-on-one work with me live each week, you can head on over to the contact page of my website and fill out a submission form. Now, let's get back to the show. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Living Out Loud with your host, Jess Phillips. Happy to be back on the mic. It's currently Sunday, July 20th, and I'm officially no longer a student or an intern, and I'm not feeling like I thought I was going to feel, and I figured I should hop on the mic and talk about it, and talk about how I'm always talking about goal setting and personal development and bettering ourselves and challenging ourselves. But there's just something so interesting after pushing so hard. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Maybe some of you can relate. But this idea of once I get there, once I get to the finish line, then X, Y, and Z will happen. Or I'll feel fulfilled or accomplished or finally okay or settled. And I definitely feel good about what has just happened over the past. I was actually talking to a friend yesterday about it, and I decided to go back to school during COVID. Right before COVID hit, I had started a business with an old work colleague in the treatment center industry, and COVID hit and the business was not going the way that we thought it was going to go. And at that point, I had been doing some individual work on the side as well. When I was living in Toronto, I was building up my coaching business. Back then, it was very focused on fitness and binge eating and helping women specifically get through that. But always having a regular job, like a 9-to-5, and then building that on the side. And then in 2020, after COVID hit, I just kind of had this moment of, I'm sure many of us felt that way, but I just never thought something like that could happen or could threaten so many industries or so many jobs, or just the way that we look at the world and the way that we work or the way that we go to school. And I kind of had this moment where I was like, okay, Jess, like if you're going to be a full-blown entrepreneur, you really need to secure yourself. And a master's degree in my industry is pretty necessary. I mean, university is great and undergrad is great, but it's not really that specific enough. Like it's kind of a precursor to whichever discipline you're going into after. And I've wanted to do a master's in counseling psych for many years before that. But when I was living in Toronto, my dream was to go to U of T, but let's be honest, I could hardly even afford my rent in Toronto. So the idea of going to school there was not happening. So once COVID hit, I was like, okay, this is your chance. Like, go for it. And everything went online. I was able to continue working and building up my client base and go to school as well. So January 2021, I jumped all in, started a master's degree, scared to death. And it's 2025 and it just finished last Friday, which is fucking wild. Like, it's wild that 4 years has gone by. And so there was 2 years of school, and then there was a 450-hour unpaid internship at the clinic that I was working at. And then after you finish that, you have to do 1,000 hours of direct client sessions in order to get your independent license. And I've just kind of been sitting here thinking, like, it's crazy how a goal can really take over my mind. And I don't know if anybody can relate, but like this kind of hyper-fixation of let's just do this, or let's get it over with, and it made me kind of sad because I really have to pay a lot more attention to the things that I learn along the way and the journey along the way, because actually finishing or getting my independent license or getting the degree on the wall, it's actually never been the actual thing to make me any happier or feel any more accomplished. It's actually all the little mundane stuff in between. So, here I am now with this independent license, school is over, and I also came to realize that I love to hide. And I have been hiding. I mean, yes, I put myself out there, but I think we all know ourselves better than anybody else. So while it looks like I might put myself out there a lot, like my friend this morning, she was like, Jess, you put yourself out there all the time. But there's a level inside of me to which I know that I can get to that I really hide from. And I've started to ask myself, like, okay, what are you hiding behind? Because when I'm in school, when I have all these hours to finish at the clinic, when I have all this stuff going on, I get to say, I'm too busy to come out. I'm too busy to attend these other things. I'm too busy to be vulnerable. And it's kind of been this safeguard to protect me from having to kind of further my career or do these other things that I might be holding myself back from. And there's something about saying that I'm a student that I think I'm coming to this realization that I have to start addressing. And maybe there's this kind of unconscious fear that as long as I'm still learning or as long as I'm still a student, then I don't really need to go for it, or I don't really need to jump in with both feet, because, the mind will often tell you, we're not good enough yet, or we're not ready enough. And that's been a big one for me. Like, you should learn more. You should do more hours. You should, even these podcast episodes, I'm like, you should wait till you have a better idea. Or the newsletter. Every week I torture myself over this newsletter. And now, instead of kind of premeditating what I'm going to write the newsletter about, I wake up super early on a Tuesday morning and I just free write. I free write either about how I'm feeling or a personal experience that I've gone through recently. And I'm noticing the change, like the past few weeks that I've been a lot more authentic on the newsletter. I get way more feedback. And I have to remember that, because when I listen to other people, or I listen to podcasts, or I follow other people's newsletters or whatever who are in the same industry as me, all I'm looking for is vulnerability and authenticity. Because I don't relate to the fitness guru on Instagram who's living in a mansion and is a size 2. I relate to people who are regular folk who are going through the same struggles as me, and they've come to some type of aha moment or some type of solution to their problem. So that's what I've been doing for the newsletter, and people have been responding way more than usual. Like, oh my God, I was just feeling that way. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this. And every single time I hit send to the few hundred people that I have on that newsletter, I like want to die a little bit on the inside. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I just wrote that. Oh my God, I can't believe I just aired that out to X amount of people. But it's my truth. You know, it's my truth. I've never pretended to be somebody that I'm not. And the struggle, I think the struggle is very real for a lot of people. And one of the biggest things that I hear from clients today is this idea of kind of adult loneliness and isolation. And that's really been my main focus, is like, how can I bring people together? How can I build community? How can I put out content that people can relate to feel less alone? So I think I'm going to start doing the same thing with the podcast. You know, sometimes these episodes just feel so daunting to me because I'm an overthinker and I overthink things to death instead of just trusting myself and putting some content out there. And if people like it, great. And for some that don't, that's okay too. There's tons of other content that, you know, you can go and listen to. So, you know, this idea of really addressing how much energy I put into all of these years to get to this destination. And don't get me wrong, like last Friday when I was leaving the clinic and I hit the hours and I got the independent license, I was relieved. I did have this moment of feeling proud. I'm like, wow, like you really did that. You really said you were going to do it and you finished it. But very quickly after, it falls flat for me and my mind goes to, okay, what's next? And I don't want to live in the whole what's next, because I find it really steals us away from the present moment. So if, you know, for example, today is Sunday, if I'm super anxious about tomorrow, about all the clients that I have, all the things that I'm behind on, I'm not going to be able to enjoy this Sunday. And I woke up this morning and I was with a bunch of friends yesterday. I had a great day. I felt fulfilled. We laughed, we talked, we cried. I even watched, this is so embarrassing. I never watch TV during the day. It's just something that like reminds me of when I was using, and I just cannot have the TV on during the day. And I had a friend sleep over on Friday and we woke up in the morning and started watching Pretty Woman. And like halfway through the movie, I'm sobbing and he's laughing at me. And it was just so funny because it's like when I allow myself to just be and enjoy the moment and not have all these kind of like strict rules and guidelines on what I can do and what I can't do, it's actually quite an enjoyable experience. And we just laughed at ourselves and got on with our day. And you know, I woke up today and I just thought like, okay, you can start to relax a little bit. But I don't know. I don't know if it's just the way that I'm built. I don't know if it's these kind of societal expectations right now. But so many people that I work with, so many of my friends, we are in this hustle culture right now. And yes, like, you know, I have to just address the obvious. We're living in a very expensive time right now. We're living in a high conflict society. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of negative news. Things are very expensive. So yeah, we have to take care of ourselves and we have to work and we have to hustle. But also too, at the same time, like how much joy are we experiencing? How much are we enjoying our lives while we're building to that goal? And you know, for a long time, all of my worth as a person was often tied up into these goals. And there's a big problem with that, because if the wound underneath is this wound of not being good enough, I can fill it. I can fill that hole in the soul all I want, but there's always going to be a leak. So I can fill it with school, I can fill it with building financial success, I can build it at the gym, I can try all these things. But if I fundamentally feel like I'm not good enough underneath, it doesn't really matter what I fill it with, because there's always going to be that leak that comes out. So I have to start thinking, and I'll encourage you guys to do the same, is what is that wound underneath? If you are in this kind of hustle mentality, or building, like, are we running away from something? Are we under the false notion that once we get all this stuff that we can relax? It's kind of the same as, like, a police officer, an RCMP officer. There's so many individuals that I see working their tail off, being exposed to so much trauma, and they can't wait till they're 55 to hit retirement. And then what happens? They hit retirement, they either have a heart attack, they're either so deeply traumatized that they can't relax, they start drinking. So this idea of like push, and then completely stop, I don't think is that realistic or healthy either. So it's really coming back to this idea of balance for me. And the fact that I don't want to sell myself short or hide anymore, or have to say like, oh, I'm busy learning, because it really is like a safety strategy for me. And as long as I'm busy, and as long as I'm kind of in that school mentality, then I'm not responsible for anything else. And I've started to ask myself too, like, what is it that I'm really scared of? Because so many people talk to me all day long in session about the things that they want to do, but they're not doing. And I think about it in turn myself as well. So what's underneath that? Why do we have these things that we want to do, or these goals we want to set, but then we don't take the action to do them? So there's a couple of things at play, right? Like, so for example, people want a certain body. They want this certain physique. But then every day they're like, oh, I ate like an entire bag of Reese's Pieces again, right? So that can point to a few things. It can point to, like, let's just call a spade a spade. It takes a lot of work to achieve a certain physique. So maybe some people don't want to put in the effort. Maybe some people believe that they actually could never have the body of their dreams, right? Some people do it in relationships. They say that they're settling, or they're staying with somebody abusive or toxic. And what is the fundamental belief? Is this belief of that right person out there isn't really out there. So let me just grasp on to what I have in front of me. And I started to think about my own, because I as much as I like to be honest and relate to clients, I never want to promote something that I'm not necessarily practicing myself. It's not a great feeling, and it leaves me feeling quite like off the beam and disconnected. So I started to think like, hey, if you're everybody else's cheerleader and you're helping everybody else set these goals and deeply understand why they're not sticking to them, then I have to do it myself. So I started to think like, okay, with this podcast, I have these ideas of, I would love to make content, not full time, because that would probably be exhausting, but for years I have been saying, I just want to be able to hop on camera and put out content, put out my thoughts. I do believe in my gift of gab, that I have the ability to communicate strongly and clearly, and I know that it helps people. So then why is it when I have the opportunity to, I shy away from it? And I started to think like, okay, are you scared of putting a video out there and somebody commenting on it, or somebody making fun of you? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I've never really had that experience. Like, we all saw this week, those two CEOs get completely publicly humiliated and shamed. I don't think anybody wants to feel that way. I also think it's very dangerous. Um, I'm not here to say, right or wrong, do whatever you want to do, but now they're being publicly shamed by the whole world for having an affair. And that level of public shame, I mean, that can lead to depression. It can lead to suicide. It can lead to, so that's not healthy either. Am I scared of, public shame or comments from strangers on the internet making fun of my videos? I don't really think that's the thing that lands for me. I actually feel like I'm more scared of the people that I know and the people that I'm friends with for some reason, even though they've all been super supportive. I think there's just something so vulnerable about putting yourself out there and talking about these things. I think it's why I love writing so much and writing the newsletters and blogging, is because I can put myself out there, but with a safety strategy around. Like, it's just my writing. It's not my face. It's not a video. There's still something quite protective about it. But yeah, I've been starting to challenge myself. If I say that I want these things, then how come I'm not doing it? Because I really believe too in the power of, so many people say like, I'm so committed or I'm so resilient, but it's really not so much about that. I really believe that each person, like, that we actually already have what we need and that we're a lot tougher and more resilient than we think. We just have to, even if it's a false belief, like I remember my old business coach used to tell me this all the time. He goes, Jess, your brain doesn't know if you're lying to it or not. So I remember when I was drowning in school debt and I was so fearful of money. I was fearful of debt. I was fearful of not making money. I was fearful of making money. I was fearful of failure. I was fearful of success. Like, I just didn't want any of it. And he started to coach me through, like, tell yourself that you're gonna make a certain amount of money each month and each year. And at first I was like, oh, it's so stupid. That's never gonna happen. This whole this secret mentality, and we're gonna manifest. Anyways, I started to do it last September, and I am here to tell you that it worked. And I really felt like I was lying to myself every single month. Every day I would start to journal in the morning. I would start to say, this is what I'm going to make. This is what I'm going to attract. This is the energy that I'm going to put out there. And it has happened consistently from September to July. So just shy of a year. And I believe we can do that in other areas as well, right? So this idea of goal setting, even if I don't believe it, if you were to have told me 5 years ago that I would have a completely full practice, and now I'm thinking of starting a group coaching program because I don't have any more room to see individual clients, I would have laughed in your face because I didn't believe it. It's so hard to believe in yourself when you're in survival mode. That's what I've learned. When I'm drowning, when I'm just trying to pay off debt, when I'm trying to build websites and there's so much money going out, but I have this vision, I have this dream, it's just really hard to convince me in that moment that everything is going to be okay. And that's why it's like times like these, when I have achieved what I set out to do, I have to stop and pause and think like, okay, I used to have another friend say this to me. He goes, I reached out to him one time and I was just in a really bad place. And he said, are you in a better place than you were 3 years ago? And I've never forgotten that he said that, because now anytime I get into that headspace, I think back, not necessarily to 3 years. I mean, you can, but I even compared to last year, right? Even last July, my so-called problems or my stressors are completely different than they were a year ago. And that's growth. My job is just to enjoy the growth along the way and be weary of always setting the bar so high so that I feel like I can't attain what I'm setting out to do. But really all to say is that I watch so many people change, right? Like I have a front row ticket to the power of change all day long. And I watch people just completely, I worked with this woman who she was completely dysregulated in the beginning of our sessions, and she had a lot of non-negotiables, and she says, I'm never doing this, and I'm never talking to this person again, and I can never do this. And I've watched her over the past year, A, get more settled within herself, and B, start to reconnect with these people that she said she was never going to speak to again because she's in charge now. She knows what she can give. She knows when she can see them, when she can't see them. And she's worked so hard on her, like lowering her own overwhelm, right? I always use the same analogy with clients where it's like, if you have a water glass and your water glass is filled to the top, it doesn't matter what stressor comes in that day. I have a lot of female entrepreneurs that work with me, and they say like, I can't stop crying in business, or I can't stop crying when my partner brings up something or whatever it is. And it's interesting because historically, I mean, what is anger? What are tears? It's sadness, right? A lot of men say, I have anger issues. You don't have anger issues. You have a depression issue, right? Anger is masked depression. But with women, a lot of women will start to experience anger and then explode in tears. So, at the beginning of our sessions, she was like, I'm sorry, I can't stop crying. And I said, please don't apologize for crying. This is the water cup, right? If we're completely overwhelmed all day long, it doesn't matter if you stub your toe, get broken up with, miss the bus, you're going to spill over. So our job is to really lower that water, and walk around like a 4 on 10 instead of a 9 on 10 or a 10 on 10. But all to say is that, whatever goal you have, whatever direction you're headed in, you don't have to fully believe it. You have to believe it a little bit. You have to believe it enough to stick with it, but you don't have to fully believe it in order to convince yourself to do it. It's really just, can you convince yourself to finish what you start, stick to some type of framework that you set for the day. A buddy of mine this week was like, I don't know if I could do the things you do. And I'm like, I don't know if I could do the things I do either, but I set deadlines for myself. So like, say, for example, I created the newsletter. The newsletter is 3 Tuesday tips from a therapist. So it has to go out on Tuesday. If I just wrote a newsletter that said tips from a therapist, I'd fucking never write it. I'd never write it, because that's the scary thing about being your own boss, is that nobody's telling you what to do or when to have it do. I think that's why I loved school so much, because there were so many deadlines that I had to fulfill. And now that the gun isn't at my head, I'm like, oh, it can wait. Oh, I'm not in the mood. Oh, I don't feel great. Oh, I don't, whatever. But this idea of kind of self-esteem and satisfaction and discipline can only come from me. It can only come from me doing the things that I say that I'm going to do. So I'm going to continue to do that. And I just really wanted to kind of like hop on here and just be transparent about how confusing and messy goal setting can be. And how I really want to start practicing. I talk about this often, that I love celebrating others. This definitely goes back to a deeper trauma wound that I don't really need to drag you guys through, but I grew up trying to please two people who were not easy to please. And that has followed me my whole life. So, and turned into a deep sense of codependency in my 20s, where it was really, let me celebrate others, let me do for others what they can do for themselves. Let me try really hard. Let me continue to love people who don't treat me well. So that's deeply ingrained in me to really pump others up. But when you grow up trying to please other people or trying to be a certain version of yourself to make someone else happy, you don't develop a strong sense of self. And when you don't have a strong sense of self, it can be really hard to figure out how to nurture that self. I hear a lot of people, for example, say, actually I had yesterday, a bunch of us went for breakfast, and we specifically go to this restaurant because there's this woman that works there and she's a riot. She's like the best waitress in the world. I love her dearly. She makes the whole experience so fun. And she had just gotten her hair done. And I was like, my God, your hair looks amazing. She's like, stop it. No, it doesn't. It doesn't look good. It's this, it's that. The roots are too dark, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, would you look at that? It was so hard for her to take a compliment. And I see that often. And I was the same. Somebody would compliment like a jacket I was wearing and I'd be like, oh, I got it on sale for $40. Like, is it really necessary to say that? Like, can't we just learn to say, thank you? Like, that was really nice of you, and allow it to land. I never let anything land before. It was like, get me out of this uncomfortable situation, or I don't know what to say right now, or I gotta go. And now it's like, okay, let's practice letting the compliments in. Let's practice celebrating ourselves. Let's practice being able to relax a little bit because, and I don't know, guys, like I'm going to do a whole separate episode on these being my last few months in my 30s. I don't think I'm scared to turn 40, but for like all the reasons you would think I would be scared to turn 40. But I am scared of how fast time is passing now because I never used to feel that way. In my teens, I was using and I was a disaster, but in my 20s, I felt like time passed pretty slowly because I didn't have as much going on. I was living at my parents' house. I was in university. I was going to my recovery meetings. I was out with my girlfriends, shopping, hanging out. Like, there just wasn't all that much going on. And the bigger the life we create, the faster it goes by. And I think I'm haunted by this idea. I used to work with somebody and, he was actually really mellow by the time I started because I didn't see him for a few years, and then I saw him again and I was like, wow, like you're so peaceful. And he loved to just be out in the country, and he moved very slow, and that's not the person I remembered. And he said, Jess, I spent 40 to 50 working my effing tail off. He goes, I never saw my family. I never saw my friends. And yes, he was making millions of dollars, but he said that decade just went by in like 2 seconds. And I think that scares me more about this mentality of like, achieve, set these goals, whatever, is that the time passes so fast. Like, I cannot believe I started that degree January 2021 and I just finished everything that went along with it last week. Like, it's 2025. That's wild. So this idea of, can we set goals, but also be mindful, be present in the meantime, enjoy it, enjoy life. Like, we can still build strong careers, but also foster community and connection, and laughter and spending time with people, because I don't want 40 to 50 to go by and be like, oh, I just hustled at my computer and now I'm 50, right? So anyways, I don't know if this is helpful for anybody, but it's definitely helpful for me. I think, hopping on this mic and writing the newsletter, it's quite cathartic, actually. Like, I feel, I think it's my space to be able to talk about how I'm feeling without having to have the vulnerability of doing it face to face with anybody. So maybe I should look at that too. But here we are. Hope it was helpful. Keep setting your goals, keep pushing, but don't forget to enjoy your life in the meantime. Love you all, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye. Thanks everyone for listening and supporting Living Out Loud. Be sure to tune in next week for another fun, juicy episode.